well, the history of iText and PDF. So today we see that PDF is one of the world's most widely used documents format. But how did this happen? Why is PDF so popular? Well, I talked about the Campbell paper in the first session. This is actually a picture I took in the Acrobat Museum headquarters of Adobe in San Jose. Sorry, it's not that sharp, but that's the original document from 91. And it explains why PDF is needed. From the original name for PDF for Acrobat was Carousel, but the name was already taken, so at the last moment they had to change it to something else, to Acrobat. And the first versions of PDF, Adobe Reader was not free. You had to pay for a copy of Adobe Reader. And so Adobe said, well, if we want to make PDF a success, how do we do this? And maybe, and that was a bold move of Adobe, if we make the reader free of charge, then it will have more chances at having success. So Adobe said we are going to charge to create PDFs. That's a limited number of companies, but we are going to make the consumption of PDFs that we are going to provide a product that we are going to give away for free. So it was an interesting step that made PDF more attractive than other competing file formats. And then in '98, I released the first open source PDF library that I created. It no longer exists. It was really bad. I mean, I didn't understand PDF, and I wrote a PDF library, and working for 2 years with that PDF library, I said, oh, I've had it all wrong. So I threw away the code, and in 2000, I released iText for the first time. And the goal of iText was to bring PDF from the desktop to the server. Because when Adobe created PDF, they were thinking about desktop publishing. So an author, a graphical designer, he went on his desktop, he created something, a text, some graphics, and he needed the format to export this design, this graphic tool. And so PDF was pretty much something that you did manually. And I said, well, I want to create PDFs without manual intervention. We have data in a database. In my context, I was working at university, and we had a lot of students who took classes, who got grades. So all this information was in a database. And I said, well, instead of having someone type all these names and all these grades, why don't we generate the PDF straight from the database? So automation of PDF that made that suddenly you could create like a huge amount of PDFs automatically. And I made iText open source. Why? Because yeah, I was just that guy from Belgium and nobody knew me. But I thought, I'm not Adobe, I'm not in a big company. If I make it open source, many people all over the world will start using it. And so part of the success of PDF as a format is the emergence of libraries like iText that made PDF, well, if you have a file format, and they did a count 2 years ago, Adobe counted that there are 3 trillion of PDF documents worldwide. If you have a document format with that many documents, then your document format is a success. And so that was iText bold move. Let's automate PDF creation. Now, as I said, initially, PDF was created to have a reliable presentation of a document on the screen as well as printed. But we see that PDF has evolved, and we see that PDF is used in a document workflow. So you see that, well, this is too small, but I'm going to make this a little bit larger. You see that there's a whole workflow that now exists that Adobe didn't think of in '91 and '93 when they first had the idea and first created the spec. But you can have incoming data in PDF. And for instance, we saw Johannes show a PDF without an XML. And you can use iText core library to extract the data. That was the case that Johannes did. And then he presents the data and creates the XML. With PDF to data, we take it one step further. PDF isn't relevant in this context. So you have a PDF as a source, and that's gives you the data, and then you can transform the data, like Johannes showed you the data without structure, and you transformed it, and he had aggregated data and could make the XML and then attach the XML. iText I'm going to talk later about it, where the incoming data is not PDF. You can use content to create the PDF. So this part, aggregated data, you see it there. So you have data, and you can present the data as HTML. That is what Johannes did. So why did Johannes convert the data from XML to HTML? Because HTML and CSS, there are a lot of people who know how to write HTML, know how to write CSS. And so the threshold to create a design is very low. Everybody knows how to do that. And then what Johannes did is he had HTML, and with XML Worker is the old name, PDF HTML is the new name, he created a PDF from this HTML. There are other ways to use iText. You can also organize your data in tables, in charts, and then give it to the core library and create a PDF. Shanpreet is going to show some examples later on in the session after this one. And all these add-ons like PDF Invoice, PDF Sweep, PDF XFA, PDF Calligraph that do specific things with your data to create a PDF. So you see that there's a workflow. So what are the opportunities to grow? So what did I have in mind when I created iText? Well, my initial idea for iText was I want to dematerialize paper. I want to go from paper documents to digital documents. And so that was the first step to grow. What is the next step? Well, interoperability. So what you see is, Johan says, I get the PDF, but that PDF comes from one system and the PDF is not structured. So to give that PDF to another system, I need to process things. And so what we see is you have a lot of different PDF software, and they all create PDFs, and these PDFs all comply with the standard. But for the PDF created by one system to be able to use that PDF in another system, you may need some transformation. So interoperability, all these different add-ons, they are created to make this happen. And these little gears can be integrated into software to make this happen. Now, open source. So one reason why I made it open source was because nobody knew me back in the year 2000, and making it open source suddenly exposed my name to the whole world. But first, something about open source software. The intellectual property of software is very much similar to the intellectual property of a book of literature. And so by default, when you write code, that code is copyrighted. And copyright says that an author, so the developer in this case, he automatically can prohibit others from reproducing, adapting, or distributing copies. That's how, so even if the source code is shared, if there's no license attached, it's proprietary software. It's property of the author. And other people are prohibited to use it unless the author gives permission. Now, copyleft is the opposite. If you say, well, I have written this code, but I will allow every person who receives a copy to reproduce, adapt, or distribute the work, that's the other way around. So you make it available to everyone. What some people often forget is the work is available to everyone as long as any resulting copy or adaptation is also bound by the same copyleft licensing scheme. So some people say, hey, it's open source, I can use it, I will make it closed source, and I will make a lot of money. Well, that's the first part of copyleft, but not the second part, because if you use open source, well, depending on the license, on the open source license, maybe you are prohibited to sell a closed source license for your own product. So how does this work? Well, you have a lot of different types of licenses. You have permissive licenses, so if something is in the public domain or it's an Apache license, the only obligation that you have is that you don't change the copyright information. But so if you have an open source product that is Apache licensed, you can integrate it in a closed source environment. So you can have a product that contains some Apache code, and you don't have to open source your own code. LGPL is weak copyleft, and that was the original license back in 2000 that I used. If you used an old version of iText in the year 2000, you could use it in a closed source application, but every improvement that you made to iText, you had to distribute it under the same license as LGPL. That's how I was able to improve iText, because I was the only developer, and yeah, there are only so many hours in a day, but because iText was distributed over many people, many companies, other developers found bugs, found new features that could be added, and they were obliged, because of the LGPL, to share these improvements and the bug fixes. So that's how iText got fine-tuned. You have GPL. The GPL means that if you use open source in your own application also has to be open source under the GPL. And so back in the days when software was distributed on CDs, that worked. So people said, well, I have created some software, but I'm using GPL software. Now I have to open source my software too. So that's how it worked. Then Google came along, and Google said, well, we are not going to distribute software. We are not going to distribute executables, no CD-ROMs. We are going to use a SaaS model, software as a service. So if Google started using GPL licenses, and the software itself never left the server. It was the service that was used by the end users, and the open source software was never distributed. So that's what was fixed in the AGPL. The AGPL says if you use open source software on a server, you don't distribute a physical copy of the software, no CDs, no downloads, no executables, but software as a service is seen as a form of distribution. So at some point I started a company because that iText started as a hobby project of mine, and then suddenly it became more popular, and I decided to make a company out of it. But I didn't make any money because if everyone was using iText for free. So then we changed, in the year 2009, we changed from the LGPL to the AGPL, where we know, well, that's how the AGPL works. I'm going to skip this one. We used the AGPL because of the viral effect of the open source license. So iText today is open source, and you can still download it, start using it, as long as you use it in an open source context. So you can download it, create your own software, but your own software, the moment you start using it, the moment you start distributing it, be it on a server or as an executable, you have to make your own source code available. And that's great because the product is improved thanks to bug fixes and code contributions. That didn't change. Well, one thing is, suppose that you say, well, I have this open source project based on iText. It's getting really popular. Now I want to commercialize it. I want to sell commercial licenses. Well, that's not allowed for free. That's not allowed under the AGPL. In that case, you have to buy a commercial license for commercial use. And if you buy a commercial license, you are no longer using iText as AGPL software. You are using it under an agreement, and the agreement also gives you support, warranty, indemnification. We have different models, so you can say, I want to count servers, so I'm paying a license per server, and then you have every year some maintenance fee that has to be repeated. Or in some cases you say, I cannot count servers. I'm deploying my application in the cloud, and one day I use 0 servers, another day I use 100 servers. In that case, we look at the metric. We say, how many documents do you process? And based on that number, there's a yearly fee. And then also have OEM. If you build your own application and you distribute that application to your customers, then you can say, well, for every application that I sell, I pay a small portion to iText. And so those are already true. Two methods. One, you are not a customer, but you are an open source developer. Two, you are a company that makes commercial use of iText, and you are an iText customer. The third way of using iText is in partnership. So we have released iText Core, iText 7 Core last year. And on iText Core, so iText 5 was very monolithic. It had been growing organically, and we decided we are going to optimize iText and have a core on top of which we add modules. So not everyone needs PDF Invoice, certainly not everyone needs PDF XFA and so on. So you can compose what you need. But we also allow other developers to create add-ons. For instance, there's DualLab, I already mentioned it in the first talk. They created PDF to data. And so this is a group of developers, and they say, well, we don't have any sales organization, we don't have any marketing, but we have created this product. Well, they don't have to pay a license fee to iText to use iText and PDF to data. Instead, we sell their product, iText branded, we do the sales, we do the marketing, and we share the revenue with those developers who created PDF to data. So that's another model. You don't pay for your use of iText, but you get paid by iText for every license that iText sells. So those are three ways we work. And then we have iText Ditto, that will be explained later on. iText Ditto, several parts are created by iText, but the designer is created by a partner. And so we are going to sell the product, and the partner is going to do revenue sharing with the partner. So this is an opportunity. For instance, Johannes, if you would say, I'm going to turn my project into a product, we would be happy to throw away PDF Invoice and replace it with your product and do revenue sharing. Why is this? Because PDF Invoice, I wrote PDF Invoice, but I'm not a specialist in invoices. I'm not a specialist in supply chain and all this stuff. I can read a spec and I can implement the spec. I don't have any knowledge about the core business of invoices. And so this is an opportunity for people who have to make that. And so if you have a specialty, we will be happy to work this way. Also, we try to make a product and stay away from services. Because if we would go to every country to do like professional services or integrational services, we would be a huge company, and we want to focus. We want to focus on products. So that's, for instance, why we work with Inbatech, someone who speaks Thai. That's better than being a foreign company and only be able to address you in English. Sorry for that. But that's how we work. So we work with local partners all over the world. And that's a good ecosystem. Local partners can make money in their country, and we kind of benefit also. Now, why iText? What people tell us is that they use iText because of the quality of the PDFs. For instance, a comparison that many people make is, well, you have PDF Box, and PDF Box is Apache license, so we never have to pay for PDF Box if we use PDF Box. But PDF Box is harder to use, and support tagging the way iText does. So, for instance, I explained about the airlines in the States who suddenly needed to make accessible boarding passes. Some of them were using PDF Box and couldn't solve the tagging problem. And that's how they then came to iText and switched from PDF Box to iText. Some say we use iText because there's a big iText community. So many people write about iText, and questions on Stack Overflow get answered quickly. We sometimes see that iText has become a household name. Just like people say we don't drink coffee, instead of saying coffee, they start saying we drink Starbucks, which is kind of strange. But some people have a question about PDF, not about iText, but they tag it iText because they associate iText with PDF. So that's a nice thing to have. So say we use iText because we see that it's actively developed. Again, so I want to avoid bashing PDF Box because they also do a great job, but you see that PDF Box, it's developed on a voluntary basis, and sometimes you have no activity for several months in a row. And with iText, people see that there are constantly improvements, constantly new versions that are being released. And some people say it's as if iText has been around forever. So we keep on investing in new features, new development. And so then some people really are happy about the support that we offer. Although some people say the support team has helped us solve our problems. Although, as I said before, we really prefer to be like the tier 2 supplier, to be the second line and have a partner company like Invatec do the first line of support. And we help people who give first line support to support the customer, the end customer. And so feature requests from our company made it into the official roadmap. For instance, Northrop Grumman is an integrator in the US, and there was a tender from the government, and they couldn't solve that problem with any product that they found on the market. And they said, well, it would be really great if you supported this feature so that we can win this tender. And then we adapted our roadmap to the requirements of Northrop Grumman and help them get this tender. So we do listen to customers to make changes to iText based on actual requirements.